Okay, right. Welcome to tonight's full council meeting on the 1st of February. We're into the second month of 2021 already. Welcome to the meeting. I know we've got, I believe, 5 members of the public to speak to us. I understand that a number of them are talking to us about Ramsden Road, and another is talking to us about the Holme market. So you'll each get 3 minutes to say your piece, and then obviously if councillors have got any to ask questions, and if the items are on the agenda, we may pick up those things during that item. Otherwise, if they're not on the agenda, which I'm conscious Ramsden Road isn't, we'll decide how best that can be taken forward. So, Liz, was there any order that you had in mind? Remind me. Sorry, Liz, you're on mute still.
Okay, I did suggest Patricia Stubbs first because she was concerned about her connection.
Okay, that's fine. Right, Patricia, the floor is yours, and Liz will unmute you, so hopefully you can then unmute yourself.
Find you first, Patricia. Where have you gone? There you go. Okay.
Can you hear me then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for allowing me and others to join your meeting. Much appreciated. I'm speaking on behalf of the Peak Horsepower Bridleway Group. We represent horse riders from all over the Peak District. And we've asked to speak to you this evening, as you know, about Ramsden Road and to share with you what our concerns are. Particularly, we're concerned about what Kirklees, it appears, is now planning for Ramsden Road. We learned last week that they intend to use not a traffic regulation order, but something called a public spaces protection order. Now, the purpose of public spaces protection orders is to tackle antisocial behaviour. They don't deal with the problems of safety and loss of access and amenity for walkers and horse riders arising from off-roading. This can be done only through a traffic regulation order. We've also learned that Kirklees is developing this proposal in partnership with the Green Lanes Association. You probably know, but this is the national body for off-roading. The intention appears to be to gate Ramsden Road, but to still allow any member of the Green Lanes Association to use it with a motor vehicle. This will not reduce the volume of off-roader traffic or the impact it is having on non-vehicle users, as any 4x4 or motorbike driver can join the association. No other user organisation with a direct interest in Ramsden Road and its management has been consulted. We heard about what's going on entirely by accident last week. This failure to consult widely at an early stage is contrary to the Local Government Association guidance for councils on using public spaces protection orders. This guidance says, and I quote, "Early engagement with partners and stakeholders can be useful in understanding the nature of the issue, how best to respond." The guidance tells councils, and I quote again, that it is useful for local areas to seek early contact with interest groups when scoping their proposals to help them identify how best to approach a particular issue. If Kirklees were following this advice, it would have to face reality. The reality is that the issues on Ramsden Road go well beyond anything that can be dealt with by a public spaces protection order. The core issues are the safety and loss of amenity for walkers, horse riders and carriage drivers. We're very grateful for the Parish Council's interest in Ramsden Road. We're asking you not to support Kirklees in its intention to use a public spaces protection order. We urge you to please press for a traffic regulation order. Anything else will just allow the problem to drag on and grow even worse than it is already. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's very useful. Thank you. I should just say we received various documents by email as councillors over the last few days from I think Liz will have to remind us who they were specifically from, but with photographs of the condition of Ramsden Road in particular. So I think we're all sort of aware of the scale of the problem. So if we could move on to Chris Woods. If Liz could unmute Chris, please.
Just trying to find him, sorry. Why don't we try someone I can find? What about Andy Wilson? Can we have Andy Wilson next, Rachel?
Okay, we'll have Andy Wilson, and I promise you, Chris Woods, we will come back to
Right.
you.
And Andy Wilson was one of the people that sent us the pictures and a report.
Okay, so Andy Wilson, if Liz, yeah, has unmuted you.
Hi, okay. Yes, I'm Andy Wilson, and thanks again for giving us the opportunity to speak.
Oh, there he is.
I've lived here on Brownhill Lane now for 45 years, so I think probably I'm as well qualified as anyone to speak about what's going on Ramsden Road and the other roads. I think you've probably all seen the information I've sent. If you haven't, can I urge you to have a look, please, so you can see what's actually going on. I walk part of this route, well, every day, and probably all of it every week, so I'm well aware of what's going on myself. Can I be just clear about the area that I'm talking about? We all call it Ramsden Road. It isn't just Ramsden Road. It's a series of roads that connects the A6024 at Holme Moss right through to Whitegate Road on Cartworth Moor. And most of this is in the Peak District National Park. So what's changed over the years? Well, certainly much more use by 4x4s, trail bikes and quad bikes. Partly this is due to greater publicity of the area, and the organisations such as GLASS and the TRF heavily publicise it and map the area, so it's got a lot wider known about. And we get people arriving from all over, Manchester, Oldham, Liverpool, Leeds and even further afield. There's also the illegal element as well that's increasing. And some of the photos I've sent show you some of that. So what's the result of this? Well, loss of amenity. And I don't know what the official version of amenity is, but what I mean by that is that we get things like walkers who are actually deterred from walking around here because of the poor conditions of the roads and the safety around these various vehicles. I think equestrians similarly. I know some of the local horse riders won't come round here anymore for fear of meeting with these vehicles. And cyclists, and I'm a cyclist myself, and I would say all but the bravest cyclists now won't tackle a lot of these sections of road. They're just too bad. We've got the visual impact, so damage to the flora and fauna. Trees, there's several trees now in danger of being destroyed. And of course our heritage, things like these walls that have stood for hundreds of years are now being destroyed. So where do we go next? I mean, it's very clear that the maintenance and repair is inadequate to keep up with this increased use. And I've got to say that policing is very difficult and largely it's ineffective. The landowners, I think, are either unable or they're unwilling to really take any effective preventative measures. So there's free access to private land. So I suppose that leads me into, what do I actually want from the parish council? Well, I'm fairly clear about it. I'd like a formal request to Kirklees for closure of this whole route to motorised vehicles. And I think, from my fairly amateur viewpoint, TRO would seem to be the most appropriate and probably most proven route of doing that. And there's plenty of examples around the country where they've successfully done it. And finally, if I can just leave you with a few words that I found on the Peak District National Park website. And they say, the law requires us to conserve and enhance the natural beauty, wildlife and cultural heritage, promote opportunities for the understanding and enjoyment of the special qualities of national parks by the public. If there's a conflict between these two purposes, conservation takes priority. All I would ask you to do is please reflect on that and compare that with the sort of photos that I've sent in, and I know plenty of other people have, and see what you think. I think that I can't see why anyone will be any doubt that some sort of action is needed on here before we completely lose this area.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That was really helpful as well. Thank you. So moving on to, are we able to bring Chris Woods?
Well, I can't see him on my screen. Can anyone else see him? Rich, can you see him? No, I think he's dropped out. Perhaps we could move on to Andy Leader.
Yeah, we will, and then we'll see if we can come back to Chris.
Okay,
Hi.
Andy.
Okay,
Hello.
Andy.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm a Holmfirth resident and a volunteer with Beacon Northern Footpath Society. I've used Ramsden Road for 25 years now, 2 or 3 times a week, and I've seen it deteriorate rapidly over the past 2 years. But the situation, like Andy Wilson said, extends beyond Ramsden Road all the way to Holme Moss on what I refer to as the Yate Holme Lanes. This is a great area for local people to walk, cycle or ride, but unfortunately the lanes do carry historical vehicular rights, which were established in the days of horse-drawn vehicles, so they're quite unsuitable for modern 4x4 vehicles. So for many years the legal 4x4 use has caused extensive damage to the unmade and unsealed surfaces, and this has led to severe erosion and large areas of standing water. Like Andy said, this has a negative impact on the amenity value of the routes for non-motorised users and for residents. Kirklees are responsible for maintenance of the lanes, but they failed to carry out any effective work. They did approve closure of Ramsden Road in both 2009 and 2018 to motor vehicles, but failed to carry out these closures. This has resulted in the last 2 years in a real peak of antisocial behaviour associated with 4x4 use. On behalf of local users and residents, can the Parish Council ask Kirklees to carry out repairs or come up with a scheme of repairs and to place a permanent traffic regulation order on Ramsden Road and the Yate Holme lanes to prevent further vehicular damage and to protect the investment that they make in repairing the roads and to protect the area for the quiet enjoyment of locals and visitors alike. Now, I'm also aware by mistake that Kirklees officers are proposing a public space protection order for the area, but this will only partially limit off-road use. Unfortunately, council officers and councillors are refusing to share any information with residents and interested parties, and this actually goes against the Local Government Association's guidelines for authorities, and it's against the spirit of the legislation itself. So could the Parish Council actually ask Kirklees to drop this approach and to use a far more effective traffic regulation order which secures the area just for pedestrians, riders and cyclists and keeps these vehicles out? And I'd appreciate further discussion or correspondence with you on this matter, really. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry, I'd muted myself. Thank you very much for that, Andy. Again, a useful insight into the issues. Just before we move to our other public speaker, have we lost Chris Woods, do we think?
I think we have, and I'll just say that he was representing the Peak District Green Lanes Alliance, so all the people that have spoken have come from a different perspective, and I'm pretty sure that he was also asking for a TRO. So
okay, can I just make a suggestion at this point that given the Ramsden Road is...
Rachel, I think P. Stubbs wants to give you some information.
Right, okay, if we just have a quick input. Yeah, Trish Stubbs, if you take yourself off mute, please, or Liz, take her off
I've
mute.
unmuted her.
Sorry.
Oh, I thought I had.
Okay, can you hear? Yeah, no, I've just phoned Chris. I know Chris, and his laptop has gone doolally, but he is trying to get back in. So you might want to just watch out for him if that's okay.
Okay, in which case we'll pause there and we'll just come to our other public speaker, which is Caroline Kimber, who I know is talking about Holme Market rather than Ramsden Road, but hopefully we can therefore come back to Chris in a moment. So we've heard from everyone. So Liz, would you mind unmuting Caroline, please?
Okay, I represent, there are three of us, myself, Mike Bell and Alex McAndrew. There was, Kirklees have offered the licence, or have offered the opportunity to tender for the licence for a market in Holme. We have registered, we've officially registered our interest to do that. I did submit a PowerPoint with our proposals of what we felt the market should be and what it should provide for Holme. Essentially what we want to do is create a space to develop new and existing businesses within Holme. We would like to provide a hospitality offer as part of that market provision. We'd like to provide a space for local makers, producers and artists to showcase their work. And hopefully promote a sustainable agenda within the function of the market and the people that trade in the market. And for us, it's a really big part of creating that destination Holme piece, in that, not to be something in competition with businesses in Holme, but to add something to the town and, hopefully increase footfall. Give people a reason to visit the town, give people that live in and around the valleys a reason to stay in Holme and not venture out maybe into other towns or cities to have a provision there, that there's everything that we need in Holme. So there's a retail offer, a social environment, a social space, seen as a meeting point, entertainment provision, cultural arts experiences, and a hospitality offer in there. I think the PowerPoint's quite all-encompassing really of what we want to do, but I don't know if anybody would like any further information. They're more than welcome to ask. At the minute, we have registered our interest and we are just waiting for the formal application process to start, and we'd really like to think that Kirklees would favour our proposal.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Caroline. Yeah, just to say we did receive your presentation, so thank you for that. That's in our sort of pack of papers, and we've got an agenda item later in the meeting where we'll be just making sure everyone's aware of the process by which Kirklees are seeking a new licensee. So it's very helpful to hear what your plans are. So thank you for that. Right, Liz, we don't seem to have Chris back, do we?
No.
What I was going to suggest, because Ramsden Road isn't actually on the agenda, I was going to propose that it is delegated to the planning committee, who meets next Monday, because it strikes me that it is related to planning matters, being about footpaths, bridleways, etc. And obviously well, a lot of councillors will have heard what was said tonight and seen the inputs already, but perhaps if we could contact Chris Woods and see if he's willing to speak to the planning committee on that day, which, as I say, is next Monday, or if he's not able to do that, if he's able to provide something in writing that could be considered at that planning meeting, then it could be discussed in full there. Can I just, before we see if anyone's willing to second that, can I just ask Councillor Blacker, as Chair of Planning, if she's thinks that's a good approach?
Yes, yeah, I'm perfectly happy with that. That's a good idea. Okay,
so can I ask for it? So I'll take that as Mary seconding me. Can I take a vote on that? Did we send it to planning? Okay, I can see a majority of hands. I don't think we need to count them, Liz, for that one. Okay, thank you very much. And so thank you to members of the public who have come and spoken to us. So we very much hear what you've said, but because we don't have it on our agenda for tonight's meeting, it's more appropriate if it's discussed in our planning committee, where we can give it the due attention that it deserves.
Mr. was here now,
yeah, Mr. Woods has just arrived.
Ah, okay. Well, in which case, I'll suggest that we do hear from Mr. Woods since he has arrived, but we will still defer the detailed discussion about what the council may or may not wish to do about it to next week's planning committee. So Christopher Woods, thank you for persisting with trying to contact us again.
I'm sorry, the PC just died on me. I had to switch off and switch on again.
No problem. Just to update you, we're actually, because it's not on the agenda for tonight, we're actually going to look at the issue in detail in light of the feedback we've received tonight, which will include yours in a moment, our planning committee, which meets next Monday, so that we can give it the proper attention it deserves. But by all means, please speak to us now. You've got 3 minutes, obviously, to give your views on it.
Okay, I'm Chris Woods from the Peak District Green Lanes Alliance. The Parish Council's main aim is to improve the quality of life of residents and make Holme Valley an attractive area to visit. Therefore, you will be concerned about preventing the continued degradation of Ramsden Road and its misuse by certain 4x4 and trail bike users. The problems include: 1, the ability of this unsurfaced and unsealed road to sustain motor vehicle traffic, particularly when its drainage is in serious disrepair. 2, the desire of some motor vehicle users to play on areas away from the road for added thrills. And 3, the loss of amenity to non-vehicle users through being deterred from using the road for exercise, enjoying the fine views, and experiencing the tranquility of the countryside. The pandemic has shown us the importance of this amenity. We believe your concern is shared by officers and members of Kirklees Council. Kirklees is exploring using a Public Spaces Protection Order, PSPO, to address these problems. But how this approach has been selected, by whom, and what alternatives have been considered is unclear. Certain stakeholders have been consulted. Who these are and how they were chosen is unclear. These stakeholders are reported as broadly supportive, suggesting that specific proposals have been formulated. No details are available. Guidance to councils on PSPOs does recommend early contact with interest groups before a formal statutory consultation. However, it envisages contact with a range of interest groups. We know of a number we would have expected to have been consulted and who haven't been, and we don't think you have. We believe a traffic regulation order might be a better way to address the problems of Ramsden Road. We don't know why this appears to have been rejected. However, our main concern is that Kirklees Council seems to be set on developing its approach with insufficient engagement of key stakeholders and without transparency. We would ask you to join us in contesting Kirklees' approach and putting the whole process on a sounder footing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Again, that was a really helpful input from you on Ramsden Road, and it seems there's quite a lot of sort of similar views in terms of a potential solution. So, as I say, we're going to defer it to the planning committee that meets next Monday, so we can discuss it in full there. Can I ask Andy Wilson, because I don't want to have a long discussion about it now because we just don't have time to do that. So can I just ask, if you've got another point to raise, perhaps you could email it to the clerk, or again come and speak at our planning meeting next Monday. So, Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, could I ask please who, if they are aware of who actually owns the land that this track goes through? It's owned by somebody, so whose land is it? Do we know?
Yorkshire Water own most of it, and or tenants of Yorkshire Water, yeah.
Okay. And so, have you been in touch with Yorkshire Water?
Yes.
And what is the outcome of that, please?
Well, nothing, because they're kind of dealing with Kirklees and neither of them are getting very far with any of it, really, to be honest.
Okay, well, I think we'll carry on the discussion at the planning committee next week, because there's obviously quite a lot of detail. We've been presented with lots of really useful information. So a big thank you to members of the public who've spoken to us tonight about it, and we want to make sure it's given the appropriate time to consider. So thank you for that. Right, we will move on our agenda. So members of the public are welcome to stay if they wish, but please feel free to leave if you've got other things you would rather be doing. Okay, so we'll move on to apologies for absence. I know we've got a few. Liz, if you could tell us, please.
I've got apologies from Councillor Greaves, says he'll be in and out during the meeting, but he's got other meetings on at the same time. Councillor Pogson is unwell, and Councillor Sweeney, although he's here now, he might not be here all the time.
Okay, and I think there was one from Councillor Brooke.
And Councillor Brooke, yes, sorry, he hasn't got connection. And Councillor you're back, Doug's, okay.
Oh, Councillor
Councillor Carey.
Councillor Carey.
Yeah.
He's back.
Okay, right, okay, thank you for that. Right, item 171, has anyone got any interest in items of the agenda?
Could I just clarify whether there's anybody at the meeting who's absent from the meeting who hasn't sent an apology?
Darryl Gould isn't here.
Councillor Gould. Okay. Right, so does anyone have any interest in items on the agenda, please? I can't see any hands. Okay, any more DPIs? Liz?
No.
Okay. So next item.
Can I just say, sorry, Chair, but I sent the clerk an item that had come to me for people to be filling in their interests on the that they have when they are doing meetings. Certain things keep coming to light about who does what, where and when, and I noticed it's not actually put on their they don't declare it, so I'm a bit concerned now and again when things aren't declared.
Okay, Councillor Roberts, well, it's up to councillors to make declarations on the night of the meetings, and also to keep the clerk informed of any changes to their circumstances that affect DPIs.
Do they realise that if they don't, it's an offence?
I would hope that they do, Councillor Roberts. Right, can we move on, please? Sorry, Councillor Roberts, would you mind muting yourself so that you're like everyone else who's... Thank you, that's brilliant. Okay, right, any officers' interest in the agenda?
No.
Nope. Okay, are there any items on the agenda that we think should be discussed in private? Anyone got any? No, can't see any. Okay, so the first item about minutes is to confirm the minutes of the council meeting, which was held on Monday, the 14th of December. So I'd like to propose that we approve those, please. Can I have a seconder? Yeah, thank you, Councillor Colling. All those in favour, please. Yeah, I can see a majority of hands. Thank you. Okay, those are confirmed. Right, so I'm going to ask Councillor Carey to propose the pubs and comms minutes, please.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everybody. Can I propose that we accept the minutes as a true and accurate record from the pubs and comms meeting on the 7th of December, items numbered 2021, 01 to 2021-15 inclusive.
Okay, just before we vote on that, I can see Di has got a hand up. Liz, could you just unmute Di? She's labelled as John, but it's definitely Di. Councillor Hall, sorry.
Yes, can I just query on this? On item 2021-29, item 3, it's on regarding high-vis jackets. Now, I would like to know what happened to the ones that we've already purchased. Can anybody throw any light on the subject?
Councillor Hall, none have been purchased to my knowledge in the time I've been on the council. So for the last 6 years, we haven't purchased any to my knowledge.
Well, we had some. We had a lot because we've all worn them on various road closures and car park duties and that. And I have a sneaking feeling that they were lent out to someone and we never got them back.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate if that's the case, Councillor Hall, but I think these things do over time tend to either deteriorate or go missing. So can we, that's a separate issue rather than the accuracy of the minutes. So can I ask for, well, I'm happy to second the Pubs and Commons minutes since I'm a member of that committee. So can we take a vote on those, please? Approve those? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Can I ask Councillor Davies to propose the Climate Emergency Committee minutes, please?
Yep, I'd like to propose acceptance of the Extraordinary Climate Emergency Committee, a meeting on the 17th of December. And those are 2021-43 to 2021-50 inclusive.
Okay, I'll second those. All those in favour, please? Okay, thank you. Right, and then can I move on to Councillor Blacker to propose as 2 sets of planning minutes to do each in turn, please?
Yes, can I propose that we approve the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 14th of December 2020, number 2021-106 to 119. That's the first one.
Hang on,
the second one, the approval of the minutes of the meeting on the 11th of January 2021, number 2021. Oh, the numbers are missing, whatever they are.
Okay, just to clarify, the second lot were at 120 through to, sorry, I'm scrolling it down, 134 for the
Thank you.
Small numbers. Okay, I saw Councillor Colling seconding those. So all those in favour? Hang on, Councillor Roberts. Sorry, just before we vote on that, Councillor Roberts has got a query. Can we unmute Councillor Roberts, please?
Can I ask Councillor Blacker what the arrangements and what's been done now with regards to the footpath at 60 at Wolfstones?
Councillor Roberts, that's on the agenda later on tonight.
I know it's on the agenda, but I'm asking the chairman of the planning.
Well, can I ask us to, that will be talked about under that agenda item. This is solely about the minutes. Okay, so all those in favour of those planning minutes, please? Okay, thank you very much. And the final one is finance and management. I'm conscious that Councillor Pogson isn't here to present them. Can I ask, remind me, who's vice chair of that? Is it Councillor Sweeney?
Yeah. It is, yeah. So can I present the minutes of the meeting held on the Monday, 18th of January 2021 of the Finance and Management Committee as an accurate record of the meeting? That's items 2021-58 to 2021-72 inclusive.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll second those. Okay, so all those in favour of those, please? Great. Okay, thank you very much. Right, so moving on from the minutes, we are now on to referrals from standing committees. So the first ones are from the Finance and Management Committee. So the first item, which is H in your packs, is to approve the payment schedule for January 2021, although I'm looking and it says February 2021. So can I just ask the Deputy Clerk just to clarify that? Should that say January rather than February?
No, it should say February. It's the year. It's the month to date. It's approving what's come through this month in February.
Okay. So what's been paid last month, or what's due to come in this month?
What's due this month?
Right. Okay. What's due this month? Okay. Has anyone got any queries on it? Or are we happy to approve? Oh, Okay, Councillor Dalton.
Yeah, the item on the agenda is to approve the payment schedule for January 2021, not to approve the, it's a referral from a standing committee. It's not to approve the proposed payments in February.
Okay, can I ask the Deputy Clerk just to clarify, please?
Well, the payment schedule I sent was the month to date February, not January. The intention was to get approval for the payments that we received invoices for in the last couple of weeks, basically, which also haven't paid yet. So they will be part of February's schedule of payments, not January's.
Okay, so it's a typo on the agenda, effectively. So the document we have is the correct document.
We certainly received them in January. If that point, we received them in January, but they will be on the schedule of payments for February, effectively. So it's February we're asking for.
Okay, so can I ask us to approve the payment schedule then? Schedule of payments for February 2021, just so we're absolutely clear.
Can we be clear on this? It's January's payments that are due in February.
Yeah.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so can we take a vote to approve that, please? Okay, thank you. Okay, the next. Yes, Councillor Dalton.
Just a question. Why has that matter been referred to the full council? Is that not a matter that can be dealt with by the Finance and Management Committee?
It will be about the timing of meetings, Councillor Dalton, because the next Finance and Management meeting is, just looking at my schedule, 1st of March. So to allow prompt payment of the bills. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's likely to happen because we aim to have a council once a month and then the alternate month to be F&M. So we're always going to have a schedule of payments.
Okay. Right. Okay. So so we approved that. So moving on to item 177, which approved the membership renewal for both clerk and deputy clerk as members of the Society of Local Council Clerks. So can I propose that we do that? So all those in favour, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item is item 178, which is confirmation of the precept for the next council year, so 2021 to 22. As it says in the agenda, Kirklees Council has notified the Parish Council that there's been a slight change to the tax base, which has been reduced from 10,149.79 to 10,092.84. And there's also a reduction in the amount of the special expense grant contingent on the change to the tax base from 3,248 to 3,230. So as a consequence, the new precept figure is slightly lower than what was originally anticipated. It's the value of £1,545. So the proposal from the Finance and Management Committee is that Council approves the shortfall in the budget for 2021 to 22 caused by this reduced tax base, because as I understand it from the discussions at F&M, that hasn't really happened before. It's usually just gone up slightly each time, so it was unexpected. It should be met by using the general reserves to the tune of £1,545. So unless anyone's got any queries on this that they'd like to ask Deputy Clerk, then we will move to vote. Right, Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Dalton, please.
Can the amount of money surely will have altered and the amount have gone up because there's more houses gone up in the valley?
Can I just ask Deputy Clerk to comment on that, because he was going to find out a bit of detail about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we were a bit in the dark about ourselves. I had a exchange of emails with Graham Wild from Kirklees, and yeah, you're absolutely right. Obviously the number of houses is going up, so it's not relevant to that. The thing is, they have to also factor in whether they think they're likely to be able to get money from the council tax from the electorate effectively. What Graham Wild said is effectively that more people are claiming using the council tax reduction scheme, which is the new name for council tax benefit. And presumably that's all tangled up with COVID and just general economic conditions. But basically they're expecting to take less money via the system than they would normally. So they have to adjust the tax base on that basis.
Okay, thank you for that, Rich. Councillor Dalton?
I think the council should be a little bit more cognizant of what's happening. There's a reason why, as Richard says, there's a lot more people struggling to be able to pay the full council tax, and the instinctive reaction to keep the budget at the level it is and raid the coffers is I'd like to suggest that we really ought to be looking at it from the other end, and we should be looking at reducing the budget for the year for £1,545 at least, in recognition that everybody else is having to tighten the belt at this time. The council really should be reflective of that. I mean, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. The Climate Emergency Committee, for instance, is spending money.
Okay, Councillor Dalton. So you're asking that it's not met by general reserves, but taken out of a budget line?
Correct.
Okay. Does anyone second that proposal?
I second that? Second that.
Okay. Does anyone have any counter proposals for that? Councillor Barker's got his hand up.
Or maybe we could just petition the government for the 14 million that they owe Kirklees.
Okay. Are there any counter proposals? No. Okay. We'll take a vote on Councillor Dalton's proposal that rather than the shortfall being met by use of the general reserves, the budget is revisited to take that sum of money away from it. Okay, all those in favour of that? Or is Councillor Dalton perhaps wants to clarify his wording? Should be unmuted? No.
No, that's fine. The proposal to take the £1,545 out of the current budgets and not interfere with the reserves. Okay.
All right. So all those in favour of Councillor Dalton's proposal, please? Hands up. Okay, so we've got Councillor Dalton, Councillor Hall, Councillor Dixon Senior, Councillor Firth.
Councillor Bellamy got her hand up.
Kath Bellamy, yeah. I can't see Councillor Roberts' picture, so can I just ask Councillor Roberts to confirm if she's voting in favour or?
No, I'm in favour. Yeah.
Okay. And we had Councillor Hall as well. How many is that, Liz?
6.
6. Okay. All those against that proposal, please. Okay, so we've got Councillor Davies, Councillor Becker, Councillor Colling, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Dixon, Junior, Councillor East, Councillor. Yeah, we've got more than 6.
12.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so the shortfall will be met from the general reserves. Thank you.
And can I ask what happens when we've used all the general reserves? Are we going to look into the general reserves, or are we going to?
Well, Councillor Roberts, we revisit the budget every year, so have that discussion when we
Judith, just go bankrupt. That's all they want to do. They just want to bank us. That's all, and put us out of business.
Councillor Dixon, we have a debate as a council every year. We put together budget proposals, and that's what this was following through with. Okay, so on to the next item on the agenda, which is policy and other matters. First item under that is 179, which is appointment of an independent planning examiner to review the Holme Valley Neighbourhood Development Plan. The information's here, which I'll just read out, which is Kirklees Council has basically received details of 3 candidates for the role, and this is a role that's organised by a organisation called NPEERS, which is the Neighbourhood Planning Examination Independent Referral Service, and it's something Kirklees apply to in a joint application with the Parish Council. And 3 candidates have been put forward. I've got their names actually. They're Tony Burton, Rosemary Kidd and Peter Biggers. They're all very experienced planners who've handled a lot of examinations of neighbourhood plans in different parts of the country. I've looked at all the applications. The planning consultant that's worked with us on the neighbourhood plan has also had a look at them, and we're satisfied that any of those candidates would be suitable. And the reason Kirklees have applied for 3 is for their procurement purposes. They need to have 3 candidates to consider. So it's proposed that full council would approve endorsing whichever is Kirklees Council's preferred candidate to undertake the examination, because effectively Kirklees are currently going through the process this week to decide who to choose. And it should be noted there's no cost associated with this for us. It's purely just expressing our preference, but we don't have a preference from having looked at what we could see. Councillor Dixon. Councillor Dixon.
Apologies. This neighbourhood planning, whatever we call ourselves, it's ours. It's nothing to do with Kirklees. Why are Kirklees doing the decision, making the decision who they want, when it's nothing to do with them? It's you that's put all the legwork into this. You and other members of the Holme Valley have spent hours and hours in sorting this out, and then Kirklees are going to have the final decision.
Okay, Councillor Dixon.
Well, I would never get involved in it really before, because I thought it was going to interfere with my work ethics. But if Kirklees are going to be the ones that's in charge, I want to know why you've wasted all this time, Rachel. I feel sorry for you that Kirklees are now going to...
Well, can I just clarify, Councillor Dixon, that the process is that the plan is produced, as you rightly say, by the Parish Council, and it is then submitted to an examiner who is independent from Kirklees Council, which is our local planning authority, and who are working with the Peak District National Park, I should add, as the planning authority for parts of our area. And the examiner looks at the input that we've given, which is a submission plan and all the background documentation that's all available on our website and all been circulated to you in the past. And they review that alongside all the comments from Kirklees Local Planning Authority and from the Peak District. And so we have our view of the plan that we wish to present to our community in a referendum for prospective adoption, and the local planning authorities have their view of what where they've got concerns over it, and the examiner is effectively an adjudicator who decides what needs to change in the plan, where they support what is in our plan, where they may want it changed slightly. So to be honest, they're all independent people, and what is proposed here is that we support whichever Kirklees chooses, because having seen the 3 candidates that are on the table, they all seem equally experienced in conservation matters and heritage matters in similar. There's no particular reason for us to express a preference. So can I go ahead with a proposal that full council endorses the choice that Kirklees Council make, and then obviously we will report who that is to the planning committee or full council, depending which one comes first. So can I propose that? Can I take a seconder for that, please? Yeah, Councillor Dixon, thank you. All those in favour, please. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item, and I'm glad to see Councillor Greaves has joined us. Very good timing, Councillor Greaves, thank you. The next item, 180, is remembrance parades, which I'll just read out the text at the beginning of the agenda item, but hopefully you'll have seen all the papers associated with it. So there are currently 2 parades held each Remembrance Day in Honley and New Mill. Obviously they didn't happen this last year because of COVID restrictions. But the Parish Council has been made aware by Councillor Greaves that the National Royal British Legion has withdrawn its financial support for these parades, in part due to the increase in insurance premiums, and the supporting documentation explains some of the rationale behind that. So in order for the parades to continue in their current form, Council is asked to consider if it wishes to take on responsibility for these parades in the future. And there's basically three different options, and which I will read out, and then if people have got any questions that I think Councillor Greaves would probably be able to answer from a Honley perspective, and perhaps Councillor Firth or Councillor Hall may be able to comment from a New Mill perspective. So the three options are that the Parish Council take on the responsibility of the parades but delegate the activity to a local committee, which is usually a local group of volunteers, which currently is in existence because they're the people who currently order the organise the parades typically. So there are people there. Then the Parish Council would have the insurance liability, but the local committee would effectively do the day-to-day work. This is the preference of both current organisers in Honley and New Mill, and the Parish Council Insurance, so that's Zurich, who our clerk has contacted on our behalf, has confirmed that it won't increase our premium, although of course it will incur some element of time commitment from the clerk, because the clerk would have to complete and sign the any temporary road closure applications, for example. So there will be some administrative costs associated with that, but there wouldn't be an additional cost associated with insurance. The second option, which is B, is that the local committees are asked to formalise themselves into effectively sort of bespoke groups that organise the parades. And then they would take on the insurance liability, but we would make a commitment as a parish council to pay that insurance premium for each year, which is estimated to be between £250 to £350 per group. So obviously a total of £500 to £700. Those are estimates, but they're indicative figures. Legally, it would have to be a separate group to the local Royal British Legion branch, which previously had been the key people organising it, but obviously the people involved in that may overlap. And the third option is that the Parish Council doesn't adopt either of these options and doesn't offer any financial or practical support to the parades. So, in light of that information, can I ask if anyone's got any questions, and we'll bring in Councillor Greaves or Councillor Hall, Councillor Firth if they've got specific issues to raise. I can't see any hands up. Oh, Councillor Carey and then Councillor Greaves.
Oh, yeah, I was amused. Yeah, so many public parades have been affected by this. I mean, certainly I've been involved with the folk movement for many years, and a lot of the traditional parades have stopped, largely because the police have not taken any responsibility from them anymore, not prepared to staff it. I was wondering, I mean, what I don't want to do is end up having to pay a lot of insurance for what's relatively small and straightforward events, really. The only thought I'd had was, if the local brass bands are involved or the local scouts are involved, could they do it? Could they be the lead organisation and put it on their liability? Because obviously there is scout parades and brass bands are often insured for such things. So that was just a thought, really. But I think what I would say is, if that isn't possible, then I'd rather we did it under the parish insurance, and I'd suggest that one of the local councillors to those parades took on the lead liaison and to save Liz most of that work. So they were the conduit, you know, the formal conduit between us and that parade, because I think we would have to we are taking legal responsibility for it, so we'd have to be visible and involved.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Greaves and then Councillor Firth.
Yeah, do you want me to come back on Doug's points?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, so Doug's the suggestion about another community group, that's really option 2. So it would be whether or not one of the existing participants was going to take it on under theirs. Realistically, there isn't anybody where that neatly fits, and there is no existing members of certainly the Holme group. I think this is probably true for New Mill as well. There is no existing insurance within any of those organisations that would cover the remit of a parade for non-members. Okay, so personally, my preference would be for option 1. It gives the comfort to the groups to know that they are being supported, and I'm glad to hear that Zurich has said that they will cover it as part of the regular premium. there will obviously be some officer time involved in this, but the important bit about the offer from both New Mill and Honley is that there's already an organising committee of locals that come from a variety of the parade groups. Again, I can't say for certain for New Mill, but whilst West Yorkshire Police and Kirklees Highways aren't formally involved in that management group, they are supportive on the day. So Kirklees, for example, doesn't charge for the traffic management order, and there's normally anywhere between 3 and 5 police staff in uniform at attendance at the Honley parade. So one of the conditions, if you like, of that parade insurance is normally that it's approved and signed off by Police and Highways, and that it meets the spec, if you like, set out by Royal British Legion. So as long as the organising committee is jumping through their 3 hoops, it covers off all the aspects of liability realistically that you would expect. So there's no additional burden to be put on them. The work of the clerk would be to make sure that they carry on doing what they do, and that Kirklees and the police and the I forget what they call them. There's like the flag bearer for Legion are comfortable with it. So if any of those flag up an issue, then we've got a problem. If they're all happy with it, then there's nothing extra to be done. So I hope that's helped with Doug's point about any other group. That really would be option 2. My preference, my strong preference would be for option 1, because that's really what New Mill and Honley are after, and it just gives them that safety of knowing that they don't have to go and try to work out the insurance. They can just focus on the day. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Greaves. Councillor Firth, you had your hand up earlier. Did you have something you wanted to raise on this?
I'm just all right. Thank you. Yes, the parade on Remembrance Sunday. For years, of course, we've had a parade down Sudan. It was only this last year that we're told there possibly won't be another one unless we get together and come up with some formula to keep it running. It's also amazed me because in the early days, when I first started laying the wreath up at the church, there was no problem with the march down Soodhill. It was Epworth Band led. We followed. There was generally somebody jumped out into the road and stopped all the traffic coming down from Sallywood. And then when somebody else would stop the traffic coming from Huddersfield, and somebody would stop the traffic coming from Holme Firth. There were 3 people involved, and took us 15 minutes to go down Soodhill and 10 minutes round into the square in front of the Duke of Leeds, and finish playing off there. And then we had the march and the laying of the wreaths. And that was it, no problem. It's only over the last few years that it's sort of been made into a big thing. I'm a bit like Charles. I would go for option 1. Well, I think really before I've actually spoke to 1 or 2 people to do with the remembrance, and I think a meeting or meetings would be advisable for the next Remembrance Sunday. I don't want to see this disappear. As I say, it's been there a long time, and I would like to think it's going to go on for a lot longer. But again, that's up to the people. But okay. I think basically option 1. But we need to talk about it. Need to speak with the British Legion, the police, and of course Kirklees Council. See if we can come up with a solution. I'm sure we can, and that's really. I don't want to see it go. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Firth. Just to confirm, I know Councillor Greaves has spoken to the key people in Honley, and I've spoken to the key people. It's Mr. Tinker is the main contact in New Mill about it, and I know both those parties are keen to progress with option 1. But before we take a vote on it,
do you want me to just come back
on
the point that Donald made? Donald, I don't want to have a pop at national British Legion. And I would draw a massive distinction between national and local British Legion.
Yeah.
But I'm honestly really disappointed in the attitude that they've taken national, because what you described is what's been taking place across the country for 80 years. But just because of one incident 3 years ago, where one idiot met a fool, they've basically withdrawn support for parades. And now I appreciate their concern around the insurance bit, but they've walked away and they've basically left local branches to try and figure something out. They chucked it in the direction of local authorities, even though LGA went straight back and said, this is not a responsibility. It's not something to pass to us. So then they produced a briefing note, which basically set out. So the briefing note is in our papers. But in essence, I'm disappointed at the approach National British Legion have taken. But I think I like you. I want these parades to continue. Exactly. You know, okay. and the only way we can do that is by supporting our local branches.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just hear a comment for Councillor Hall and then Councillor Dalton, and then we will move to a vote, please. So, Councillor Hall.
Yeah, I agree with what's being said. I know this last term's been very difficult with the virus and everything, but the thoughts that this parade wasn't going to go ahead in future, the organisers, one man particular, was really distraught about it. And I'm agreeing in option 1, that I think that if we can give any help that we can, then this is something that we must do. And as Councillor Firth said, if we can have some liaison with them and then we can get our act together, we know exactly what's happening, who's doing what, when and where. And as I say, I really am in agreement. This parade's been going on for years and it's something that needs to be carried on. And I think they need all the help and support that we can give them.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Dalton.
Well, firstly, thank you, Councillor Grieve, for filling us in on the situation, and without getting into the national level Royal British Legion are up to, I think you've clarified what's a very straightforward resolution here. If we've already had clarification from the insurers that it's not going to affect our premium, we've got a very simple, straightforward solution, and that's in option A, and to have a direct line of communication with obviously you have that, Charles, anyway, with the Honley service, and Di and Donald and myself have that in New Mill anyway, with the service in New Mill. One thing I would like to highlight is that there's also obviously other war memorials in the Holme Valley that are attended regularly, might not be known, and that might not be events. But certainly, if you're looking at putting something down in the insurance cover, we should be putting it in terms of to cover events within the parish boundaries on that Remembrance Sunday, and then it covers anything that might that might go on. Because as you know, there's a regular event at the Holme Valley Memorial Hospital each Remembrance Sunday as well. So I'm fully supportive of Councillor Greaves and Councillor Firth and Councillor Hall's comments with regard to supporting option A.
Okay, so so we've got the proposal there from Councillor Dixon. Have you got a short comment to make?
The only comment I would make is that option 1 suits everybody. Option 1 means that there may be slightly more work for the clerk to carry out in doing the administration. That's what I feel the clerk is there for, to help in administration for the people of the valley. And it doesn't matter whether it's items on this, but other items that crop up that might need some assistance. We've got to use our ability to keep these traditions going. And I thank Councillor Dalton, Councillor Hall, Councillor Firth and Councillor Greaves for the support. And this is what we need to do to keep the traditions of the Holme Valley going.
Okay, thank you for that.
If it means a little bit of extra cooperation, fine.
Okay, can we bring that to a proposal then, that we adopt the first option, which is option A, that we take on the responsibility, but effectively the local committee undertakes that work, and it needs to be done in conjunction with the ward councillors. So obviously we've already mentioned Councillor Hall and Councillor Firth and Councillor Greaves for Honley, because that connection needs to be made so that the clerk is given appropriate support to undertake the administrative duties. So taking the proposal that
Councillor Roberts.
Councillor Roberts, are you wishing to speak?
Can I second that proposal, please?
Right.
Or
Okay.
Arthur.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Okay, let's move to vote then. All those in favour, please. There's option A. Okay, I think that's unanimous. Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Right, moving on to the next item. This is sort of builds quite nicely on the last one. Actually, it's about what we do for our community. Now this paper, which is we're on item 181, strategic priorities for the parish council. This is something that I've put together. It was brought to council but deferred because of lack of time in December. It was then circulated by email with the opportunity for further comments, and I've updated the paper to reflect comments that some councillors sent me. So thank you very much to those of you who did send some feedback in. Just to give some context before I read out the little summary that's on the agenda. This isn't a new thing actually for the parish council to do. Liz quite helpfully look back to see what we'd done strategically in the past, and back in 2006 we had a mission statement and various things that we said were important to the council, which was approved through full council. And again in 2013 we did a community engagement strategy, which was all about how we would seek to engage with our community and deliver for them. So this isn't a new sort of modern invention for the parish council. It's basically an update of making sure that we're clear as a council what we're seeking to do. And it was being prompted by two key documents that we've recently published. One is the neighbourhood development plan. Obviously that's still yet to go to referendum and examination, as we were talking about earlier, but it does have a large number of actions in it which aren't planning issues. They're other things that we said we would look at on the back of engagement we had during that process. And also the climate emergency action plan, which again has visions and associated actions. And the idea of the paper I've put together is to remind people of the key elements of those two plans, but also to try and bring them together into some sort of clear headings, so that then we're in a position where we can identify our priorities. And to me, the key themes that seem to come out, and those who fed back to me seem to support that, were around community, economy and the environment. There were sort of three key pillars of what we try and do. And beneath that, what I put together was a graphic that tries to show what those 5 priorities are that sit underneath it. So the first is valuing community assets and services. Second, building community resilience. Thirdly, support the local economy. Fourthly, champion local democracy. And fifthly, improve our environment. And there's various actions. They're not a comprehensive list of actions. They're just examples. And many of those things we're already doing. They're not, things like, for example, valuing community assets and services. We've got provide and sustain infrastructures to support community use. Well, that's all the benches, for example, that we've been supporting over the years. And similarly, we give grants often to festivals and local events, for example, which then support the local economy. So there's a whole range of things that we're already undertaking, but I think it's helpful to have a bit of clarity as to what we're trying to achieve as a whole council. And so the idea is that by having these, we can then communicate them clearly to the community. They can see how all the different parts of the council work together, and we can hopefully make it easier for people to understand what the parish council does, what we want to prioritise our focus on, and how all the committees can contribute to that. So that rather than committees' agendas being driven by what they always looked at, it's also building on what we currently do, but looking at how we can enhance what we do as we go on. And I think a key theme, which actually interestingly was back in 2006 and 2013, in fact, is about doing things in partnership. And I know it's something that Councillor Greaves rightly raised, which is, you know, there's a lot in here in terms of all the supporting documents and all the actions. And we're very clear that a lot of this can only be achieved in partnership, and they're not things that Parish Council can do on its own, but we can do if we work with other people, and that might be statutory bodies like these, or it might be local community groups, for example. And that's just building on what we already do. So does anyone have any comments they wish to make before we start thinking about approving these priorities? Right, Councillor Davies and then Councillor Roberts.
Just a first comment, not to do with you know, what you're going through, but by the way, which is an excellent document. I would ask if you could, Chair, look at the background that Councillor Dalton's now put up on his screen. I find that very inappropriate that he's using his background to make political statements. So I don't think that's appropriate for a council meeting. So I would request that he's asked to take that down.
Okay, Councillor Dalton, are you willing to put a less overt message on the back of your backdrop?
Yeah, it's not a political message at all. It's a simple 5-word statement.
Okay, thank you for that comment, Councillor Dalton. We note that. Right. Right, Councillor Roberts. Sorry, Councillor Roberts. Just, yeah, you've just been unmuted. It's okay.
Sorry,
I can hear you now.
I've looked through all this and actually was going to write to you prior to this meeting tonight. But I would ask that whatever document you put out, you put it in layman's English. Because not everybody has a master's degree in all this fancy wording that you're putting through. I, for one, haven't got no fancy degree. And if that came through my door with all these silly, oh, well, not silly words, no, all these words here, I think, what the devil's she talking about here? I'm more than likely to go into the bin. So whatever you put down that you're wanting people to do, put it in a plain language. Don't try to dress it up with a load of fancy words because it just won't work.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Roberts. Just to clarify, I'm not suggesting that we put flyers through everyone's doors with this on. The 2-page summary is to try and just highlight the key elements. And certainly I'm happy to work with others on making sure that whatever we put on our communications is as accessible as it can be. I like to think the titles that have been used are understandable, but I'm quite happy to adjust wording to suit. But the principles remain around community, environment and economy. Right, Councillor Dixon and then Councillor Carey.
I do have one of these fancy degrees that Councillor Roberts was talking about, but to be honest, I don't think the wording's that complicated. It's quite straightforward. It's good. I'd like to propose that we accept the document.
Well, unfortunately, Rachel, just before you decided to do all this, I want it to become unmuted again because I personally have had 2 or 3 people who've read some of this belonging to this neighbourhood plan. And like I said, they haven't understood what the devil, what's all this about here? And what does this mean? And what's she wanting to do here? And well, what's all this about? Oh, I'm not going to bother with this. And they aren't bothered with it. And we don't want that sort of thing to happen because, as you say, there's been a big document put together. But to put it into ordinary layman's English, not in a load of fancy, souped up fancy words, because nobody's going to take any notice of it. And you certainly don't want to lose a referendum for that, do you?
Yeah, but Councillor Roberts, there's a distinction. The Neighbourhood Development Plan is actually a planning document, and therefore some of the terminology within it is planning specific, which I admit elements of it are more difficult to understand because they refer to specific planning vocabulary. But this summary document, which is what we're talking about now, we're not talking about the detail of the Neighbourhood Development Plan, is designed to be understandable.
And it says support local business and local economy, fair enough. Champion local democracy, what's that mean?
Well, if you champion something, you say that it's important. We could think of another word, but I thought it was a suitable choice. But I'm happy to amend it if someone's got a better suggestion. But it's the principle of what we've always had, which is that local democracy is important. Right, Councillor Roberts, you've now spoken, so I'm going to come. We had a proposal from Councillor Dixon, so unless anyone is, I can see Councillor Carey. Sorry, Councillor Carey hasn't spoken yet. Councillor Davies, you've already spoken, so we'll just hear from Councillor Carey, please.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, I just want to say thank you to Rachel, because this is a really, really important piece of work, and it's an internal document about our strategy. You would expect it to be written in strategic language. You'd expect it to make links between what our purpose is and what our ambitions are and what our powers are, and I think it does that really clearly. I think that the 5-column section that you've done is really well put together. You invited people to make comments on it. Some of us did. I know I did. I can see some of my thoughts have been incorporated into that. So I support Tom's proposal. I'd like to second that and move to a vote. I imagine there'll be various people on here, particularly people who put up childish background banners that will talk at length about why we shouldn't be doing any of this. But I don't think they don't do anything strategic anyway. So
Okay,
I'll move a vote on it.
Okay, yeah, we've got the vote seconded. So can we move to vote, please? All those in favour of approving the proposed strategic priorities, publishing them, and asking standing committees to consider their role in achieving them in forthcoming meetings. So all those in favour of those, please. Okay, so we've got Councillor Rees, Councillor Sweeney, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Carey, Councillor Sheard, Councillor Barker, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Kath Bellamy, Councillor Trevor Bellamy, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Davies, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Colling, and me, Councillor Hogley. All those, I mean, it's carried, but we'll take for completeness. All those against, please. Councillor Roberts, Councillor Dalton. Okay, any abstentions? Okay, Councillor Hall, Councillor Paul Dixon, Councillor Firth. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to the next item, please, which is the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill. Now, we've been sent quite a lot of supporting documentation for this, which you should all have in your packs. I will just read out the text again, just so everyone's on the same page. The Climate and Ecological Emergency Alliance have written to the Council congratulating them on declaring a climate emergency. That alliance, there's details of who's on that alliance if you look in the documents, but it's a whole array of cross-party MPs. The Yorkshire Association of Local Councils has asked that the Council is notified of this private member's bill, and as a council which has already declared a climate emergency, it's asking us to pass the motion supporting the bill. And there's a series of elements to the motion with the actions that we support the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill, inform the local media of our decision, write to local MPs asking them to support the bill, and write to the Climate Ecological Emergency Bill Alliance expressing their support. So it's something we've been asked to do. As you'll have seen for the documents, there were different documents depending on whether we were a parish council that had adopted or any council actually, didn't just have to be a parish council, whether we already had declared a climate emergency, and then there were those that hadn't declared a climate emergency, so slightly different wording, but the principle was the same. So does anyone have any comments they wish to make on this, please? I can't see anyone wanting to make any comments. In which case, can I propose that we approve the suggested motion, which I just outlined? Does anyone second that? Councillor Tom Dixon, is that you seconding? Yeah, okay, thank you. So all those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay, so we've got Councillor Sweeney, Councillor East, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Barker, Councillor Sheard, Councillor Carey, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Paul Davies, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Colling, Councillor Feeney, and myself, Councillor Hogley. All those against adopting that motion, please. Councillor Roberts, Councillor Dalton, Councillor Hall, Councillor Paul Dixon, Okay. And any abstentions, please? Councillor Kath Bellamy, abstaining. Any votes from Councillor Firth or Councillor Trevor Bellamy? No, just abstaining. Okay. All right. So that's that was carried. Thank you. So Liz, you're happy with all those elements of there's various templates for the letters, aren't there? Okay. Thank you for that. Right, we'll move on to item 183, which is the future of Holme Market. Now, I'm just going to read out the first bit and then just comment on the fact I've spoken to Chris Cotton, who's in the markets service at Kirklees Council, to get a little bit more information, which I'll share with you. And it may be that our Kirklees representatives of Councillor Davies and Councillor Firth have other elements to add. But to say that Kirklees Council asked for expressions of interest by yesterday from private, public or community organisations to operate a market within Holme Firth, and anyone who'd applied by then would be included in the tendering process. So I called up Chris Cotton, who, as I say, is from Kirklees Council, looks after the markets, just to get an understanding of the level of interest there'd been. And that's I spoke to him middle of last week. And he said they'd had about half a dozen inquiries. I think it was 7 altogether of people interested to know more, which is good news. And it's very positive. They've got, he said, there's certainly a couple of those who would be wanting to proceed, whereas there were some who decided actually it wasn't for them. So the process that they're going through is the expression of interest ended yesterday, and then all those who applied by then receive an application pack with a whole series of questions asking about how they plan to run the market, their proposed business plan. And one of the key things which is interesting is that the candidate has to find the appropriate site. So there's no specific venues already identified within the town, and they've got to have explored the options with potential landowners of those sites. They'd be responsible for any equipment, stalls, etc., how it would be set up, the days it was running, sourcing power, insurance. They'd have to recruit and manage the traders. They'd promote the market. So it's very much Kirklees will be providing the license, and Chris Cotton was clear he really wants it to be a success. He's committed, and Kirklees is committed to securing a long-term future for a market provision in Holme Firth. So they'd support. They don't want to support someone to fail. They want to support someone to succeed. But all the nuts and bolts of running it go with the successful applicant. So the intention is by mid-March to have received the more detailed applications, to score all the submissions, and ideally have a license holder in place by this Easter. And the view of trying to achieve it by Easter is partly so that then they have the good weather and the longer days of the spring and the summer to really get established. And then obviously it's pretty difficult setting up a market this time of year, whereas in the sunnier times there's more opportunities. So, and the intention is there'll be, I think there's an administrative cost associated with the license, but they're not having to, obviously they've got to buy or rent or lease or whatever the equipment and things, but there isn't a huge cost burden. Then it's not Kirklees making lots of money out of it. And the license will be reviewed every year by Kirklees, because Kirklees retain the market rights. So so that's sort of a little bit of background about it. And then obviously we had a lady talk to us earlier, Caroline Kimber, who is clearly one of the groups that's applying through this process. So obviously you'll have seen the heard what she said, but also seen the presentation. So it's really, I mean, it's really something to note, but because it's not a process about which we don't have a control of the process. But I'll just ask Councillor Davies, who's got his hand up, if he just wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think you've covered the main points, actually, Councillor Hogley. I know not just myself, but fellow ward councillors, Councillor Firth, Councillor Patrick, all of us are in agreement that what we need in the town is a vibrant market that's sustainable going forward, and really pleased that so far there's been some decent interest in doing this. So as you said, that's the process they're going through. Just so people are aware, in case there's any confusion in terms of my role as well, markets do fall under my portfolio now as a cabinet member, as a result of that, I'm no longer a director on Home Firth Forward, because Home Firth Forward is one of the groups that's registered in interest, and that's the group that Caroline Kimber comes from. So just for clarity, if you like, for people to know. In terms of the decision making, yes, Chris will run through that, and they will look at it as a senior management team. This may well come back to cabinet then for a final decision. I'm not sure at this stage, but yeah, exciting. I think, you know, it's crucial that we get that a good forward-looking, vibrant market in place. You're right about the location. However, just to emphasise, where the market hall is now, it's still very much part of the revised road scheme, that will be a multi-functional area. So whether it's car parking, events, or markets, but it's right to say that certainly this group, when they get set up, will most definitely have to find an interim site, because there will be construction work going on in our area. So,
okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we're just, Councillor Trevor Bellamy. Yeah.
Right. I think that's on now. Are we okay?
Yeah.
Just to go back a few years now, and just to show that we were actually actively involved with the market situation. I think we were the first ones that Chris Cotton came and talked to with regard to continuation of a market hall. I think he was looking for statements of interest from the parish council, which at that time, you know, there was no massive interest in taking on a commitment like that. But just show you're aware that we were involved and we were asked initially. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Bellamy. That's useful to remind us of that. Councillor Paul Dixon.
It seems strange, everything changes and one thing and another, but since COVID's been in and one thing, and we've lost various properties and various businesses in Holme, I think the opportunity now is right for Kirklees Council to readdress what we've got with the Perth Mill closing. Wouldn't it have been far easier to demolish that and use that as the road, instead of having to take down what is potentially an asset that the council have, in that this market hall could then become more vibrant and have more activity in the centre of Holme Firth, and that if anybody it's on Kirklees Council can knock it on the head and let's get that other knocked down. I know it's going to interfere with my own property because it's going to be next door. It will be next door to it, whereas now it isn't here. I don't worry about that. I don't worry about myself. I look at this and I think if they take that other down, it'd make it a lot easier and a lot better for everybody. And it wouldn't be at the loss of the market hall. And then somebody could go in and look at the market hall, see a premise that they can operate from, and operate a proper business. Kirklees have been trying to run it down for years. They haven't tried to promote it. Whereas if we got some other company, possibly the people that have spoken this today, to look at operating it in 3 days a week or something like that, and having a proper property to use, and something that Holme Firth can generate some business round, by taking the road through that other and changing all that now, might be the best thing that could ever happen to Holme Firth.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Dixon. Right, we will move on. So the next item is item 184, which is to approve the meeting schedule for 2021-22. You all sent an updated one the other day. Liz, do you have anything else you want to add to it or change?
Yeah, we're now on version 3. So there's 2 more changes. So you just have, I'll send you around the most recent one. If you want to know, I had the wrong date on the 6th of September and I've changed the date of the half term in February and just exchanged the cask is now on the 15th of February and the holiday is on the 22nd of February. Has anyone got any problems with that?
And that was for 2022, isn't
Yeah.
it? The February one is
Yeah, sorry,
2022.
yeah.
And the other one, sorry, the other one was that in 2021.
Yeah, that one was so 6th of September this year. I had the meeting starting at 8 o'clock, and it's the only meeting. So you were right. It was
So 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Okay, great. Councillor Carey?
Cheers, thanks. There was a couple of issues really. I'm not sure if I was using the right version, but a lot of the dates in February on one of the circulated versions were all a day out. So you've got a meeting on the 1st of February, which is a Tuesday. And then it seemed a lot of the other meetings that followed from that were Tuesday dates, not Monday dates. So
oh, no.
I'm assuming the 1st of February should be the 31st of January. And then
no.
that same error repeat.
Right, well, version 5 will be coming round shortly then.
But the other concern, well, there's two things. Firstly, as chair of the, I've only got one thing in my diary, and that's a holiday that's booked for the first Pubs and Comms meeting. So I'd actually hopefully be out of the country for that meeting in June. You could move it on to the 5th of July, but then that breaks your rule of trying to have a break before full council. But there is a gap on the 5th of July. So there's a particular issue for me as chair of that particular meeting. But the other issue for me, there's only 4 meetings a year of the Pubs and Comms, and 2 of them have got late starts. And I'm just really not happy about having 2 meetings in one night, particularly because meetings tend to overrun. It makes a very long evening for people. And if we're only meeting I'd rather meet on a Tuesday and have it as a proper meeting rather than try and fit it in on a Monday and have to have an 8 o'clock start and a 10 o'clock finish. And I'm assuming that's true for some of the other committees as well. So I suppose my concerns are, well, there's a specific one about the date on the first meeting on the 21st to the 6th, but also the general principle of 8 o'clock starts.
Okay, thanks. Can I suggest are we able to part approve it, Liz? Say up to the end of May, and then you could bring the updated version to the next full council, which is the end of March.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to do it?
Yeah.
So that people at least have things in their diaries up till 30th. Well, in fact, we could do it up to the 14th of June, couldn't we? Should we? Yeah. So can I propose I
was going to say, I'm quite happy to move Pubs and Comms to the 5th of July.
Yeah.
Okay, well, in which case we'll approve it to the end of June with the movement of Pubs and Comms off the 21st of June. So right. June of 2021, can we approve that? Hang on, do we need to approve it, or are we just, yeah, we didn't, sorry, we didn't need to approve it, yeah. So can we approve that to the end of June 2021, and then we'll review the from June 2021 onwards at the next full council meeting, so we can just sort out the dates. Okay, so someone second that, please. Yeah, Tom Dixon, thank you. All in favour, please. Thank you. Okay.
Can I just mention something on the issue of other nights? I mean, we are going to have quite a lot of extraordinary meetings, I think, in the coming year, and they're going to have to be on another night of the week. I don't like double meetings either, and in fact one of those was created because I've got the bank holiday wrong. So, you know, I've tried to make it one meeting a night because I think you can't start any long meeting at 8 o'clock. I think it's unfair on everybody. So I think we need to consider using Tuesdays as well. So okay, put that on the agenda for next time.
We can do, but I think we need to stick to the principle of it's typically a Monday, but only if it spills over, should we consider another day?
Well, all the Mondays are full, so it's bound to spill over.
Yeah, but I don't want us to routinely organise meetings on a Tuesday, so that we have Monday, Tuesday on a week each time. Councillor Dixon?
We'll just have to reduce the amount of meetings and disband some of these committees. And if we did that, we could get it all fitted in. It used to work very nicely before. I think since it's been spread out into so many different formats, I think it's not working. It's causing problems for everybody. It means double meetings. It means long meetings. It means extra work for the clerk doing extra minutes and all this, that and the other. And we could do away with 2 of these committees and put them in with something else. And I'm sure we talked about it before. I'm sure we've got too many. It's a quango, and I think it's time we got round to sorting things out and doing things a lot better.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon. Right, okay, so let's move on to the next item, which is item 185, which is footpath 60 at Wolfstones, Netherthong. It's to note that the council's been informed that the matter will be going to a public inquiry. My understanding from the letter that's been received by the parish council is that there is yet to be a date or a time set, and it is a virtual public inquiry, but I don't think there was any more information provided. Can I just ask the deputy clerk to just confirm that that's the right understanding?
Yeah, that was my understanding too. It also seemed to be a voluntary thing rather than a it seemed to give you an option of whether you were attending or not.
Okay.
Just to know that there's going to be an inquiry. So we need to do.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we just need to note that at this stage. Obviously, once we know a date, then it will come to that will be confirmed through planning. Okay. So moving on to item 186, to note a communication from the organisers of the Motorsport Festival, which is due to go ahead in June 2021. So can I just ask a question on this, Liz, which is through the Climate Emergency Committee, I've seen that it's been that our Climate Emergency Coordinator has seen that what I think we've been sent as well, in terms of asking for ideas of any suitable proposals. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm assuming that she is therefore collating ideas.
Yeah, she is
related to the climate emergency. Is that with a view to then going back to Mr. Crossland?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, because it's purely an item to note it, what I would ask is if anyone has any specific things that they wish to be considered, then are they best to send them straight to the Climate Emergency Coordinator?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Right. Just before we move on then, Councillor Dalton, and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this matter noting this petrol heads event that may or may not occur at some point in the future. I think the council, especially the Climate Emergency Steering Committee, should think very much about the optics of getting any direct involvement with this event. At the end of the day, these are people who love to burn hydrocarbons. It's great fun, the internal combustion engine and everything, but it's not really in keeping with what the Climate Emergency Steering Committee are seeking to do. So maybe if we've got an employee, perhaps we should ask them to back off from any direct involvement in this event.
Okay. Councillor Roberts.
Where is she?
Sorry, Liz is just finding you, Councillor Roberts.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, we shall be in an absolute direct central hit living here. Because they're going to be coming on this top lane are all these cars that's going to be shooting up this road.
We could sell a lot of burgers, Judith.
Pardon?
We could sell a lot of burgers.
Councillor Roberts, continue, please.
I shall certainly not be selling any burgers from here. I shall be telling them where to stick the burgers, and it won't be up the backside. It'll be probably up the exhaust pipes of these oncoming vehicles. I'm not very happy about it because everybody seems to dismiss the fact that there are several houses around here which are going to be stuck in for that weekend. I want to know where all the cars are going to be parked, where all the electricity is going to come from, all the stuff, where the water's going to come from for all the stuff. And it does say what it is and what it isn't. And
Sanitation.
keeps floating about with a nut plant or something and bringing me a cart to say how wonderful it all is and this, that and t'other. But I think it's going to create a tremendous amount of major upheaval.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Roberts. Does anyone else have anything they wish to say on this item other than to note it?
No.
Okay,
no.
Thank you. I mean, I would suggest, Councillor Roberts, you, as a affected neighbour, effectively, to the festival, I would suggest. I'm surprised if they haven't contacted you directly, since you are, as you say, surrounded. So I do, you know, raise your concerns in your personal capacity.
Because you know, I think 60 to 70,000 people dropping in on us round here. Yeah. I don't see how that's going to be logically. I don't see how it's going to work myself.
All right. Well, I'd urge you to discuss that in your personal capacity. Okay. Moving on to item 187, which is to note a letter of thanks for the grant of £5,000 that we gave to Holme Firth and District Bowling Club, which is delighted to see that they have now finished their new toilet block, which is excellent. So it's now got disabled access. Obviously, we've got the note that's been provided. So it's good to see them acknowledging our role in that, and hopefully, as they say at the bottom, they will be able to invite us along to go and have a look when things are easier to visit and we're out of this lockdown. Okay, so we'll just note that vote of thanks. Okay, so the next item is 188. This is Councillor Trevor Bellamy has had virtual meetings with Yorkshire Local Council Association regarding the devolution agenda and Peak District National Park, about working more closely with neighbouring authorities and organisations. So having spoken to Councillor Bellamy, he was keen to update Council on things that were happening, but there aren't any specific things that we're making decisions on. It's just a general update of those discussions. So over to you, Councillor Bellamy.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. With regard to the YLCA meeting, it's certainly been a large agenda the last couple of meetings they've had, and it's been 3 hours rather than 2 hours. But I'll give a condensed version. Very much condensed.
Please do.
Devolution was the main topic. Lots of people, lots of things to say about it. Lots of different feelings, obviously. Talk of candidates. This is for the post of West Yorkshire Mayor. Looked at candidates. There was a great deal of discussion about electoral dates, which I'd taken, in my own mind, I'd taken for granted would be the May date, but they were talking about October and all sorts of things. So just where it's finished up, I don't know. We looked at, on a more local basis, for us, regular meetings between Kirklees officers and leaders of the 5 minor councils, ours being one of them. That used to take place on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, and there's a plan ahead to have that restated. And post-COVID tourism group, again, tourism being one of our main priorities in this area, they always used to be tourism group meetings with Kirklees tourism officer and some of ourselves. Now that's in the pipeline again to be reinstated, again with a monthly, bi-monthly, whatever we choose. And I'll leave that with YLCA, and I'll now go on to the Peak District National Park meeting. Again, it went on and on, a full afternoon's worth. And Peak District National Park, just a few stats I thought might be useful for people. came about in 1951, the first national park. There's a population within the park of 38,000 people, which on a good hot summer's bank holiday or weekend easily doubles just for the day. 109 conservation areas within the Peak Park. And the main thing that I picked up from that meeting was the extending boundaries. This is something that Peak Park are really wanting to do, and it involves us, of course. There's 8 surrounding areas such as ourselves where they have a small part within the Peak District and the bigger part within another authority. And Peak Park are wanting to bring neighbouring authorities and organisations together, improved local community involvement, etc., etc. And we're looking at various things, subsidised training events available for anything that was appropriate. We can jump onto that one. There are grants available, albeit fairly small grants, but they are there. Hydro type grants, that type of thing. Steering group presentations on natural environment. Many changes in legislation. Footpath cycle routes, that was quite interesting tonight with regard to that. With the footpaths officer, it would appear that there is an interest in connecting ourselves between Peak Park and Kirklees with footpaths or cycle routes, if it's feasible to do that. And another bit I picked up, whether this is correct or not, I don't know, but it says no way to amend a neighbourhood district plan other than to start afresh. Now that came from chair of the committee I was sat with. I don't know whether that is right or not. I hadn't heard that, but somebody will know more than I on that one. Right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Trevor. That's good to hear an update from those two groups. So we will move on. Item 189. This is to just say that the council would like to mark the recent death of a past council member, David Humphrey, who served as a parish councillor for 4 years in the 1990s. And the parish council has sent a card to Mr. Humphrey's family expressing our sympathy.
Can I ask where did he what was his area?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question, Councillor Roberts. I don't know if Liz knows the answer to that.
What do you mean? Where did he
which ward? Which ward? Yeah.
I don't know. I think it might have been Upperthong, but he lived in Holme Bridge.
Okay, thank you for that.
I've been on since 2003. And when do you say it was?
1990s. Councillor Paul Dixon, can you remember the gentleman concerned?
I don't think he spent a lot of time at the council meetings. I can't remember much about him.
Okay. All right.
When I was told that he died, he didn't spring to mind to be a councillor that had done something that you could remember. I don't know. It would have been on for a short period, and that's all.
Okay, Councillor Hall, did you want to say something?
Yes, I worked, was on the council when he was there. I seem to think he was covering up Holme Bridge at that area. Or
okay.
It could have probably been Holme First Central that covered up there.
Right. I remember him well.
Definitely remember David, yeah.
Yeah, I remember him well, yeah. It was married to one of the families that I knew lived at Stagwood Hill.
The Hurst family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're sorry to hear of his passing. Okay. Chairman report. I've just got a couple of things I wanted to raise. As we are in the period of COVID, clearly I haven't been out at various events because there haven't been many events happening, I'm afraid. However, I did attend a virtual event, which was the something called the Future Landscapes Project, and I know Councillor Davies was one of the other 74 participants, and I just thought it was helpful to make people aware of this project, which is something which covers the catchment areas of the River Holme and the River Holme, and the Kirklees Council are guardians of what's called the Future Landscapes Strategy. And what this is it looks at a whole range of different things about water management, biodiversity, how we preserve our landscape, access recreation, how we allow more people to enjoy it, and sustainable farming, etc. And there was a whole range of different parties involved in the sort of update event, which were everything from the Environment Agency to various Colne Valley Tree Society, River Home Connections, Yorkshire Water, West Yorkshire Fire Service. There was a whole range of different people, and there was some really interesting discussions about how we could improve access, how you the challenges with planting trees, for example, and increasing biodiversity, a whole range of different topics. So I think it was just something to be aware of, that there's this future landscape strategy was due to launch in March 2020, and Kirklees Council are sort of guardians of the document, but it's something that's being developed with lots of different organisations, some of which I mentioned there, but they're now updating it because obviously it wasn't able to go through a formal launch. But there's a lot of really positive work being done to both support the environment from a sort of wildlife point of view, but also very much from a people and community point of view, and the benefits obviously that Councillor Bellamy was alluding to in terms of improved access and other elements. So it was a very interesting and thought-provoking series of presentations. Right. The other thing I wanted to raise was that the Yorkshire Local Council Association has sent the council a almost like a, well, it's a questionnaire actually, about our views on the ability of the council to continue to have virtual meetings after May, because the current COVID arrangements or coronavirus legislation that was brought in allows councils to hold virtual meetings until I think it's the end of May, or it's around May this year, and that's yet to be extended in any way. And what Yorkshire Local Council Association have asked us to do is, as one of their members, to give them our views on whether we wish to be able to continue the option of running virtual meetings. And there's sort of a couple of things they ask us about, because I looked through the questions. There's literally 4 or 5 questions, but it's the principle of after May, are we happy with the principle of being able to have virtual meetings? Were they still required, or we wish to because of the risks associated with COVID? And similarly, whether we'd be willing, as we come out the COVID restrictions in due course, whether we see a future for having a possible blend between virtual and physical meetings. And I know one of the things that came up at our pubs and comms meeting around Christmas time was from Councillor Kath Bellamy, was about the wisdom of allowing people, even if it was just external speakers or members of the public, to be able to speak to us virtually in our sort of physical meetings, rather than having to come in for 5 minutes or potentially for half an hour to come and speak to us. You know, there'd be a lot of benefit in having the facilities to allow people to do that. And potentially there's also, if councillors themselves found it difficult to attend a meeting, I mean, when we have poor weather, I know there's some snow due tonight, I think, again. So there's options there as to whether that might be feasible. Obviously there's a different legislative hurdle with that, because voting, whether you can vote in a mixture of virtual and physical, that would be one of the things that they'd look at. But I mean, so I've asked the Deputy Clerk to have a look at, within the council chamber, what the sort of potential options would be for having, and what the costs associated with those might be, if we wanted to look at having some screens and the necessary cameras or microphones. Obviously there's, I mean, you could go gold plated and go berserk, and we shouldn't do that because that would cost a fortune, but we could go very simple. But the key thing is that it would work, because we don't want people calling in to give us a presentation and the technology not being up to it. So I've asked Rich to have a look at different options that we can think about, so that in due course hopefully we can make use of those things. But clearly we need the legislative position to make that legal, because at the moment, at the end of May, everybody would have to meet physically. And my understanding is that would also include members of the public, because I don't think they've got the opportunity to just phone us or present virtually. So with that in mind, I just wanted to get some views on whether people think we should support the YLCA in saying that we should continue to have the facility to use virtual meeting attendance, and potentially that blend between the two sort of beyond this May. It's just a consultation, so it's not saying it will happen, but it's just we need to get a council view. So I'll take comments, Councillor Blacker, then Councillor Davies.
I think we should continue with it as an option. I mean, we don't necessarily have to use it, and we could perhaps have a blend of some, you know, in-person meetings and some virtual meetings. But in some ways, this works very well, and particularly, I think, in terms of the public participation. So yeah, I think we should ask for an extension.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davies.
I absolutely agree. I think that, as Councillor Blacker said, I think this does work. I think it in many ways increases the reach of the local democracy, and is more inclusive. So yeah, I absolutely support that. We should ask for an extension. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, yes, please. I think we should continue with it because of the disability aspect of it. There are a lot of us who are getting quite a little bit older in our years and not as quite as nimble on our feet as what we would like to be. And therefore it is a lot easier to be able to come to a meeting. And plus the fact you can always turn it off and go away if you don't like it. But, you know, to be able to be sat here in the warmth of our own homes, and not have to turn out on a horrendous, windy, awful, wet night in the winter time would be much more acceptable. And plus, I think that for other people as well that want to come and speak, because if they can do it, mind you, some people don't have the facility to have a computer, but under the Disability Act, I think it really does need looking into that, because it would be a great benefit for people who were disabled.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Hall.
She gone?
No, I'm
still there.
I fully agree with what Councillor Roberts says. I've lost count of the times that I've been walking out in Holmfirth about 10:20 at night after a long meeting, wondering where I've parked the car. So on a personal basis, I think this is ideal, and I'd love it to continue as long as possible.
Yes, Chair, I would go along and second that, because I find that this is my third meeting today. I could never have done 3 meetings normally in a day. I've just had this my third, and really, if group meeting goes on any longer, I can make it my 4th when I've finished here. I think I'll call it a draw, by the way. But yes, it is good. The fact that if it's a bad night, you don't have to go out. You can sit here, and you can get involved with the meeting. Probably sometimes a lot better than you can when you're all in one room. And of course, you're not spreading germs, are you, either? You know, that's another thing. No, I quite agree. And believe it or not, I know quite a few people that live in America. Most of their meetings, you know, business meetings, are all done this way. They don't even turn out. They don't block the roads up with vehicles. They just have a meeting. Starts at 9 o'clock, and a friend of mine finishes at 12, again at 12:30 till 4 o'clock. And that's his day, 5 days a week. Good idea. Excellent. Keep it up. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Dixon, Councillor Paul Dixon.
I'm very impressed that technology's taken over Don's life. If you get 3 meetings in a day, I think it's very commendable. I'll be quite honest, going out on a cold night doesn't suit me these days. Ability to walk, another problem. Keep going as long as you can, and if I have to have absence, well, I get my legs sorted. I'm hoping that the doctors are looking more favourably on letting me have my ability to walk again. So carry on as we are. I think if we look at the attendance for meetings, this year will be the highest attendance of ever for councillors. I don't think there's ever been an attendance to the level that there's been since we got onto this new screen situation. Before, you might get 60-70% for each councillor. I think it might be more like 85 and 90% for everybody, and some up to 100.
Okay,
We've only once before had a councillor that got to 100, and that was Joan Osborne in her first year, and she was called Mrs. 100%, and nobody could keep up with that record.
Okay, so it seems we're fairly well agreed on the fact that there are definite benefits in the long run of maintaining the option, at least, to have virtual meetings. And I can see that in the chat there's various other things coming up, other reasons. There seem to be lots of reasons anyway to keep the flexibility of being able to have virtual meetings. So with that in mind, I think we will guide the clerk to complete the questionnaire to reflect those views. So is that all you need, Liz, to do that? Yeah. Okay, right. Well, thank you very much all for your attendance. I'm delighted to say it is 1 minute past 9, and we can bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Richard. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.